Holy, here we go again, Batman.
What's going on, everyone? You're listening to the NerdSync Podcast, and I am so excited because I got to sit down with one of my favorite people, Arris Quinones from VariantComics on YouTube. If you're not subscribed to his channel, you gotta go do it. He does awesome comic book videos every Wednesday that talk about history of characters and versus episodes and even reviews of movies and TV shows, anything that's related to comic books. He's going to talk about. So we sat down and talked about how Variant came to be in the first place, as well as what got him into comic books growing up. We even talk about his awesome action figure collection as well. So let's get right into that. But first, I do want to apologize for any audio problems that there may be. It's totally on my end. My internet was really bad, and he was over Skype, so there may be some issues with that. So just bear with us. It's not bad, like all the way through. Just little bits and pieces here and there. So let's get right into it. And we'll see you right here at the end for some more of me talking. I'm sitting down here with Arris Quinones from Variant. Thank you so much for doing this again, giving your time. Man. Yeah, so awesome for you to do that. A lot of people have been asking me for a long time, like, can you have Arris on your show?
That's actually really funny. That's cool. It's so cool that people care. It's like, I'm just a dude, but that's awesome that people care.
Yeah. Honestly, I was like, all right, you know what? Shot in the dark. I'll send him a message. Let's see what happens. And then you got back to me almost immediately. And I was like, oh, wow. Okay, cool. Let's set this up.
I'm totally about talking and interacting with people. So I try to stay on top of that as I can, replying messages, tweets and stuff. But it's like the people who tweet to me, message me, the people who watch the show and give reason why I have a job. So it's like, yeah, I'm going to talk to you. It's like, let's talk. I like talking about comics anyway.
Exactly. So let's dive into the origin story of Variant and your basically where you are in life right now. So how did that all get started?
So it happened a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Okay, let's see where to start. All right, so essentially I co-created the show with Ryan Conley. I don't know if anyone listening or you have ever heard of Film Riot, which is another show on Rev3. I was an inventory supervisor at a security company where it's basically they refurbed cameras. Like when you go to Walmart, all the security cameras, and when you go, you go out and the things go if you stole something. Right. I was the inventory supervisor for all the stuff that would come in. We'd refurbish it, and give it to the techs there to fix it and sell it at a lower cost. Long story short, we were working out one day in a gym. He had at the time he was doing a show called Film State and Film Riot, and he wanted another show. And he's like, you like comic books, right? I'm like, I love comic books. I mean, obviously, I like comic books. He's like, would you ever want to do a show at it? And this was what a lot of people don't know is Variant was a concept for a year and a half before we even did the first episode.
Oh, wow.
I probably shot I don't know, 6 pilots because because what's kind of cool and I kind of lucked out with in a sense is he was already on Revision 3, which is actually owned by Discovery Communications. And for people who don't know what Discovery Communications is, it's basically Discovery Channel. They own Discovery Channel, TLC, The Hub, which I just found out, which plays Batman animated series and stuff. Velocity, they own a bunch. They own Oprah Winfrey's channel. That's crazy. Yeah, so so Rev 3 is basically their online outlet. So he's like, we're gonna do this. It has to be pretty solid, or we have at least a concept because we wanted to pitch it to them. We just don't want to put it up. We want to do it. We were going to try to get it, it's kind of like a band getting signed to a label. Yeah. Let's hope they like it enough to put you actually on the roster. And so we developed the concept of it and, how was it going to be? We gang shot a bunch of episodes because when it went live, we wanted to have a month out. So long story short, we did it. They liked it, and Variant went live on May 2nd of 2012. But there's actually a lot of cool aspects of the show that we haven't done. Because originally, when we first started doing the show, we wanted to do twice a week, which we kind of do now, which is why I do one-shots, which is a month or two old. It gives me the outlet where if tomorrow we get the Batman v Superman trailer, I'll shoot a video and put it up late that night instead of having to wait till every Wednesday.
Right.
But what's funny is, like I was saying, we still haven't done the second aspect of the show, which is actually what the show was meant for, which I don't really want to say because it's kind of cool. Okay. But it's a very daunting task. Like, it's going to be very time consuming, which it's not saying I don't have the time. It's just if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. And I've been trying to develop it and stuff. But yeah. But
very,
the show,
very vague.
Very vague. Yeah. Everyone's like, what is the secret project he's working on? It's not really so much secret as, obviously the big part of the show is what we do now, because we kind of just it's not so much that we had a set thing. Obviously we had a set thing, but at the time when Variant launched, I think it's safe to say there wasn't many comic book channels on YouTube. Or at least like there's lots of great comic book channels on YouTube. Your guys' stuff is cool. You got like Comic Book Girl 19. She does great stuff. The Comic Book Cast, which I've talked to them, they're cool guys. But when Variant started, it was kind of, I guess, not to be like, we were one of the first or anything, but we kind of were in a sense. Not to like, stroke my ego or anything, because I think I'm like stupid and annoying, but yeah, and then it just kind of evolved. Like, it's become kind of like now where I say to people, like, it's kind of like a school for comic books in a sense. The most popular series of shows I have is a history of, which people love. The history segments. I'll try to break down like a character in like 10, 12 minutes as much as I can. And then I was like, well, people always ask me for reading recommendations. So at the end of those, I'll give you guys, reading recommendations. I'll list because my favorites or, whatever, I think is good. So that's pretty cool. Then I'll do versus episodes, do reviews. Basically, like I say in the show, I talk about all things comics. So if it's comic book related, I'm going to talk about it. It doesn't have to be Batman, Spider-Man. If it's like, Sin City, I'll probably talk about that. Do a history of episode when that comes closer to the movie. Ninja Turtles, a lot of people don't know the Ninja Turtles was originally a comic book. I just, did a history episode on that. Transformers was a comic book. Marvel actually helped create them. A lot of people didn't know that. So anything that's comic book related, not necessarily just, Avengers, Justice League, anything that lives within that world, I'll talk about it.
It's really interesting that you mentioned how people really love the history of episodes, because for me, I always ask for fan suggestions. I'm like, guys, I need some ideas. What do you want me to do? And they'll always be like, tell me about this character. And for me, I'm like, I personally don't like to do like origin story, history of things, solely for the fact that I'll know like people, Guardians of the Galaxy is coming up, and they'll be like, can you do like a history of the Guardians of the Galaxy? I'm like, dude, Variant's gonna do that. Give me something else to do. So yeah. So a lot of the times I'll ask for people like, give me something like specific or like something cool. So like for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, we did like, are Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Daredevil connected to the same traffic accident? Like, are their origins the same?
Actually, I got a lot of that in the comments, and that's actually true. A great topic. That's cool that you talked about that, because I didn't, and it's cool that, there's someone out there for people who want to hear that. Go to your channel, and then you got it. And it's like we're covering all grounds that way.
Exactly.
I always say, too, sorry.
Go for
I always say, too, though, that, like, like this is a comic book community where it's like, I don't think anyone should think they're better than anyone. We're all just doing this because it's fun. And we love comics. So it's like, let's talk about it and be friendly. Because one of the things I don't like is when people in the comments are like, they're rude to each other. They're cursing at each other because they don't agree. Or it's like we're making fun of people because, they're coming into comic books and they don't know much. And they're like, dude, you should know that. Why are you asking? Blah, blah. I'm like, come on, guys, just be like, you were at that point at one place and time. So it's like, why are you being mean to each other? Just help each other out. Be nice. It's like, because the moment you stop making it fun, what's the point? It's because the comic books is almost like anything else that's fun, like sports or anything. It's an escape from the real world. So it's like, why do you want to bring annoyance and stress into that when you're doing this so you don't have to worry about your bills or flunking in school or whatever's going on in your life?
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we kind of try to promote is that loving comic books shouldn't have to come with prerequisites. You can be a big Spider-Man fan without having to have read 700 issues of Amazing Spider-Man. You can just love the character and love comic books, and you don't need to, have all this knowledge in your brain. You can just, love it.
Well, especially now, though. I mean, we're like, I've heard lots of people say it, and I agree, like, this is the best time to be a comic book fan. Because, like, there's lots of people who are, like you were saying, huge Spider-Man fans, not because of the comics, but because of the numerous cartoons, the video games, he's had, like, 6 movies now, and he's going to keep having movies.
Forever and ever until the end of time.
Sony is just going to keep it, which I want Marvel Studios, but that's probably not going to happen because their contract, I wish. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, you obviously, I think you might agree too. Like the comic books are going to be like the center, and I'm going to love that more than any video game or movie too, because that's the source material. But there's a lot of people who like the movies and stuff more, and they don't want to read the comic books, but they love to watch the cartoons or play video games, and that's fine. It's like, what does it matter if you don't know what issue, Spider-Man became Spider-Man or yada, yada, yada. It's like, you just like it. And you should be happy for each other, because them liking it and supporting it is making comics as a whole grow. So it's like, why be mean to each other, guys?
Yeah, I totally feel you in that exact same thing, because especially when people are being like rude to each other in the comics, if they're like mean to me, I'm like, it's whatever, I don't really care. But as soon as they start attacking other people, I'm like, oh, dude, come on, that's not cool.
Play nice, guys. Play nice.
Exactly. So I want to ask, what specifically got you into comic books? Yeah.
Well, I think I was like the stereotypical like little boy, like anything boy related I loved. So it was like Transformers, trucks, Hot Wheels, Legos, like anything that was like the stereotype, that was me. My earliest memory is probably when I was born in New York, Long Island. My dad was actually a retired New York police officer. But at the time when we moved out of the city, or I say I wasn't born yet, when he moved out of the city with my mom, at that point he switched jobs, and he basically was like, the Brink guys who like deliver money to like, supermarkets and stuff like that. He dealt with all that money, but he worked in the city, and he wanted to, raise his family in Long Island. So every day he would bring me home a toy. And one of the first ones I remember was the Tim Burton 89 Batman action figure, and the Joker one. So awesome. That kind of sparked it, because I was born in 87. So clearly I was too young to have gone to the theaters. Yeah. So I saw like, the 66 Adam West Batman series and the 89 Tim Burton movies on TV, like a lot of kids born in the late 80s. Mm-hmm. And I just fell in love with it. And then Batman was like, Batman is still like my favorite superhero. But then that sparked my interest. I'm like, there's other cool heroes out there? Oh my gosh. And then Spider-Man, I was like, Spider-Man's awesome. And he became like my favorite second superhero. And then Green Lantern and Superman. I just basically basically Tim Burton in the 66 Batman series opened me up to like, this is awesome. And then like obviously the Turtles, the 87 Turtles series I loved, but at the time, I didn't know that was originally a comic book. I couldn't read. I wasn't even born. So I was like, oh my gosh. And then I found out that, they had comic books once I was able to read. I'm like, wait, this isn't just a cartoon. They started with comic books, and they're like way more gritty in the comic books. This is awesome. And then just kind of all spread out. And I'm like, all the things I love like originally started from comic books. So this is awesome.
Yeah, it was kind of that you just liked things, but you didn't realize that the common thread in all of them was comic books.
Exactly. Yeah. Like Batman, obviously I knew, like, Superman, because I also love the Christopher Reeves as a kid. Mm-hmm. I think like most people still, love those for the nostalgia reasons and stuff. But yeah, and then it just kind of sprawled me out into everything, like the Turtles and everything, like I said, which is really cool. I didn't know. And it's like, oh, wow, that's why I like them. It's kind of weird.
I do want to touch on, you said your favorite superhero is Batman?
Yes.
Okay. This blows my mind, because I also love Batman, but I've met in my life, I've met two people, and two people only, to my knowledge, that absolutely find Batman uninteresting and just not good at all. And I'm trying so hard to be like, you guys, but he's so good. And so how would you go about, is there a way to win these people over and show them that Batman is truly awesome?
Read The Killing Joke. I think a big reason for that, at least from what I've seen, is because he's such like a popular character and everyone drools all over him, and it's like Batman can do this. Why? Because he's Batman. Yeah. It's just like a stigma now, where it's like not to like him because everyone likes him. I mean, I'm sure there's people who really don't like him just because they don't like him, but a big portion of that is because of that, I'm sick of everyone saying Batman can beat Superman or Batman can do this. It's just because he's Batman, he can't do anything. He doesn't have any superpowers. He can't do anything. But I think what attracts so many people to the character on the flip side of that is he's human. Like, I'm sure many people have said that before, but it's like he's the most easy to relate to, because he's just a rich dude who trained really hard and now fights crime. So it's like, oh, if I get a lot of money, and I train really, really hard, maybe I can be Batman. Yeah. It's like, it almost seems tangible when it's still, really not. And it's still like, super fantastical, but it's the closest to being like that could be possible, maybe.
Right.
I think, but he's also, what I say on Variant a lot is what makes a character really good. If you notice, all the great characters is their villains, and I don't think many people will argue, but Batman has the best villains. I mean, there's going to be some people who are not going to agree, but the majority, it's like if you ask some random guy on the streets, it's like, give me 5 comic book supervillains, guaranteed at least like 3 of them are going to be Batman villains. It's just because his villains are awesome and they're really known. You know?
I think that's absolutely true. With even just saying name superheroes in general, even if people don't like Batman, I think Batman's one of the first one that comes to mind, and it goes to. I was watching this documentary about superheroes and comic books, and they said like the first 2 big superheroes were Superman and then Batman, and then every other superhero would fit between them. You have a guy that can just move planets, and then a guy who's human, and then that's everybody else fits between.
It's very true, and that's another thing where people have a stigma with Superman as well, because like you said, he's the complete opposite, where he's the guy who can do everything. So people was like, well, you're just saying that because he's Superman. It's not fair. He has every power. It's like, well, he was the first superhero as far as like, that's kind of documented, or at least in American culture. He was the first superhero. So it's like you just said, everything you have, the guy who can do anything, and then the guy who's just a human with cool gadgets, and then you have everyone. It's true. Everyone in the middle, fits in there. You got the androids, you got the people who kind of have superpowers, the mutants,
aliens, and yeah. So I want to ask you, this is something that I always kind of struggle with a lot. This kind of goes back to how you were saying right now is the best time to jump into comic books. What advice would you give to somebody who is new to comic books and wants to jump into it? Because I got this question today and I didn't know how to handle it. They were like, "Where should I start?" And I'm like, I don't know. I
get that question a lot. I actually did a while ago, like the first year of Variant. We're on like 2.5 years now. I did Comic Books 101. You got the New 52, which for people who don't know, listening and stuff, is basically the reboot of the DC universe. So like it's about like what, 2 years old now? Is it 3 years old? I don't remember. I think 2011 is when they kicked it off, right?
Yeah.
I don't know that. Okay, so
that sounds right to me.
They basically revamped the whole universe. So like anyone asking me who's interested in DC, I'll be like, read volume one of whatever DC title you want. So, volume 1 of Batman, volume 1 of Flash, and then Marvel Now, which, they kind of followed suit, sort of kind of rebooting their universe like DC, but it's not quite as drastic as what DC did, but it's still a jumping on point for new readers. So like I'd, recommend Marvel Now, trade paperback volume 1, but they also, what Marvel's doing, which is pretty cool, is they do jumping on points now. If you notice on their covers, like after they finish a story arc, they'll, be like 1 jumping on point. So it's not issue 1, it'll be like issue 7. But they'll put like 1 there as it's like, if you want to start reading Daredevil, this is the issue to start.
Which is super smart.
Right. So my go-to usually is just, for the big 2, which will always be DC and Marvel, it's like do anything from the New 52 for DC, anything from Marvel Now for Marvel, and then you have like where it gets a little harder with like Dark Horse and Image. It's like, unfortunately, if you want to start reading The Walking Dead, I guess you can jump in mid-story. If you want to, but if you ask me, I'm gonna be like, just get volume 1 and work your way up through like the 18 volumes that are out currently.
Gosh, yeah, that's not fun.
But yeah. So I guess the most popular, it's always be DC and Marvel. So if you want to start reading anything DC, grab a trade paperback volume 1 of whatever title you want from the New 52, and same thing for Marvel.
Yeah,
would be my advice.
Yeah,
it's the easiest.
Definitely. I want to say I had just a issue earlier where I was reading Amazing Spider-Man #1 after Superior Spider-Man.
Yes.
And there was this weird thing where Marvel's timeline and continuity, it gives me anxiety attacks because I just don't understand it.
I have this ongoing joke with my friend where we basically say we can't tell what day it is in Marvel. Like, I'm not dogging on them because I love, or like people, that's another really, I'm sure you might get that too. Anyone who reviews, talks about comics, what do you like better, DC or Marvel? You'll always get that question.
Yep.
Right? Mm-hmm. So like, I mean, I love them both. I will always, because I love Spider-Man. He's like my second favorite superhero. I don't really have a favorite, like publisher in general. But I will say I am overall enjoying DC stories right now more than Marvel. It doesn't mean I like, DC more than Marvel because, that could flip. Marvel, and it does through time. DC will be slacking a little bit, and then Marvel stories are better. So, it just depends on, what area. Because in the 90s, that's when, Marvel was kicking butt. So,
right.
And it goes back and forth. So it's like my biggest thing is just I want to read good stories. I want good content. Like it's like watching a TV show. You don't want to watch a crappy TV show. You want to watch a good TV show. So I don't care what network is putting out the TV show as long as the TV show is good. Same thing with comics. I don't care who's putting out the comic book as long as the comic book is good.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why when people ask me like Marvel or DC, I just say yes. And then because it's all good. And I agree that I'm currently enjoying DC a lot more than Marvel, but Spider-Man will always be my favorite superhero. Yes. And I just can't get enough of him, and I'll read anything that he's in. But
yeah, so I don't really have a favorite per se. I mean, like I just said, overall, right now I'm enjoying DC. Like Forever Evil was great. I love that. And obviously, Scott Snyder and Capullo are killing it on Batman.
So good.
Like I said, since he's my favorite superhero, of course I'm going to be like, yeah, Batman. So it's just a great time to be a Batman fan. So I got the new Endgame storyline coming out, which is pretty cool. Did you read Zero Year from Batman?
I did.
Did you like it?
Yeah, it was so good.
Yes, it was pretty cool. I like the origin. I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but like the retelling was really cool. He did a lot of cool. What I like about Snyder, which is I don't know, am I going on to off tangent here?
Go for it.
What I like about Snyder, which is why he's probably he is one of my favorite writers right now, definitely, is he finds ways to reinvent the Batman universe with still making it feel like it was always there. So like he adds a new thing, like. The biggest one was the Court of Owls. He made that feel like they were around since, freaking Bob Kane and Bill Finger created Batman. Like they were always behind the scenes in Gotham, which was awesome. And then, he'll do things like the death of the family, which is just like really twisted. And then, you find out the reason why the Joker ripped off his face is like, that's pretty freaking cool. The reason why he ripped off his face is like, that's awesome. People were like, Chainsaw Massacre. I'm like, no, guys, not Chainsaw Massacre. He's got a reason. And it's pretty dang cool, the reason why he did it. And then just the newest one, which is Zero Year, was really cool. There's a lot of cool modern takes in there where it's like, let's say Bruce has some trauma in his life, which explains things. And, if you see your parents get shot in the head when you're a little kid, you're going to have some issues.
Yeah, just a little bit. Yeah.
He explores that as he's growing up, and it's just really cool. And then Capullo's art, it's like, man, these guys are awesome together. Which he's a really nice guy. I talked to him at a con. Super nice dude.
Really?
So yeah, he's really awesome. So they're great. They're a great creative team, and they're nice people.
Well, that's always good. Always good to hear.
Yeah.
So I need to ask you: is there a strategy? Because I'm a busy guy. I assume you're a busy guy as well. Is there a strategy for keeping up on comic books when you're busy?
Yes. No. I don't really have a strategy per se. I mean, I do have, because how I do episodes now, like since it is my full-time job. So I like to gang shoot, which is why people will notice where like they'll be like, oh, can you talk about this? It's like, well, I already have like the next 3 weeks like shot. Like sponsors are approved, and those are the episodes going up, which is another reason why I did one-shots. For instances like that, when I could, there's no sponsors or anything, it's just me talking. I can do whatever the heck I want with it. And like, it's real quick. I try to keep them like under 3 minutes. So I can like do it real quick. And it's just like, I think about this about Wonder Woman's new costume. There you go. 4 hours later after they released it. But I was trying to keep up. I mean, I guess part of my job is to keep up. I mean, that is my job. So like, obviously I can't read everything, but I try to, even the titles I can't read, obviously I'll do cliff notes or I'll research it or, talk to, a friend who has been reading it and then, like just skim through it. Cause there's no way. Cause people are like, are you reading this or reading this? It's like, I can't read. You know how many titles there is out there? I can't read it.
Yeah.
I can't read everything. But I try to set time a week where, cause when I read to, I'm very much like, I was that kid in school who I couldn't do homework or anything with like TV on or like any distraction. So I'll like go in my man cave and I'll have my stack and I'll just sit there for like, 2 hours or whatever, how many comic books I'll read, and I'll just go back. And I'm really like OCD with it too, which I guess helps out for the show because I like every little detail. So like most recently with Scott Snyder's The Wake, like I'll be like, wait, that doesn't. Some people just be like, oh, it makes sense, but I'm not going to go back and research. It's like, I need to know every detail. Mm-hmm. So I'll go back and be like, nope. I mean, I guess that doesn't really matter that much to the story, but I want to know.
Right.
So I'll go back and be like, oh, that's why he said this, because in issue 4, this happened. Got it. Wasn't that big of a deal, but I want to know because I'm OCD.
Right.
So, but yeah, essentially I just put time aside a week. Like, I mean, as much as I can, like, because sometimes people will be like, did you read this the day it came out? It's like, no, I can't read it the same day of, because, I usually edit on Fridays and Mondays. So, and the episodes go live on Wednesday, which is when I go to the comic book day, but I'm usually, working on an episode that Wednesday as well. So I usually actually don't read until weekends. So like Sunday is usually my day where I'll
same here,
sit there and read all my comic books and stuff. But I don't have a method to answer your question again. I just kind of, since it's my job, I'll just, whenever I'm at home, weekends, I guess.
Yeah. So you were talking about like people asking you to do different ideas for videos. Are the ideas for your videos mostly culled from the comments and everything? Or do you have like do you like sit down and like plan out months in advance of what topics you want to do?
Yes and yes.
Awesome.
So yes, a lot of them do, because a lot of people have a lot of good. The other day, what was it? I was actually on my way to go work out at the gym, and someone tweeted me. They're like, you should do an episode on what you think the new DC movies are going to be, because you know how they released their schedule through like 2018 or whatever the year was. Right. It's like, you should do what you think those movies are, since they released the dates, but they didn't release what the movies are. I'm like, that's actually a really good idea. So within the next few weeks, that'll probably be an episode. And people do like, they'll be like, you should do the top 10 this or review this. I'm like, that's a good idea. But then on the flip side of that, I do sit down. I'll like, part of my workday, like when I'll come into the studio, I'll dedicate like an hour and I'm just like, all right, let's brainstorm. Because I'll go into like my notes on my computer, and I have like right now, I think I have the next month of Variant charted out, which is pretty cool. So I know what I'm going to be doing. But yes, I do sit down and I'm like, what should I do? It's like, top sidekicks. Oh, top sidekicks. That'll be cool. My 5 favorite sidekicks. Or like, what do people want to talk about right now? Carnage. People want a Carnage episode, which is the next one coming up. I think that's going to be in the next 2 weeks. But people really want a history of Carnage episode. So, because I said I was going to do it a long time ago, which I feel bad, which was Christmas of the last Christmas in 2013. In the Venom episode I did, I was like, and don't worry, guys, I'll do a Carnage episode. And I still haven't done it yet, so I feel bad. But sometimes things get lost in the shuffle, because, like they'll be like, Wonder Woman costume will come out, be like, oh, well, I have to talk about that because that's current. So Carnage could wait. That's like, evergreen. I can talk about that whenever.
Right.
So sometimes, as news breaks, people are going to want me to talk about that more because it's current, rather than like, a history episode where that, I could shoot a history of the X-Men and use that like 6 months from now, because people are always going to want to hear about the X-Men. Right. Which is cool about that. So
yeah, I'm in that same kind of boat where with Carnage, I promised people I would do a Deadpool episode like months ago, and I just haven't gotten around to it, because again, it's one of those things where I just don't want to do like a history of. I got to come up with a cool topic. I got to think of something interesting that people haven't done before, and then and I just could not think of anything. So I'm hoping nobody notices until.
No, it's funny because sometimes, like right now, I do have the next like 4 weeks or whatever charted out for Variant, but sometimes I do get brain farts. So I'm like. But I also make it a point to like, I'll go on our Facebook page, Variant Facebook page, and I'll ask them, what do they want to talk about? Because they're the ones watching the show anyway. So I want to do whatever they want me to talk about. So if I see like, there's a bunch of people agreeing on the same thing, I'll be like, okay, well, clearly they want me to talk about this. So I like to ask them too, though, because not just because I can't think of my own ideas, but they're the ones watching the show. They're the audience, so I want to please the audience, obviously.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
The way that my show was kind of formatted for a long time was the one episode would kind of preview the next episode, and that made it really hard to be like, if I had to change a topic, then I can't change it. I'm locked in, and then
I was in that same exact boat. Someone actually commented on the YouTube comments recently. They're like, you should say what you're going to talk about next week like you used to do. I did it for like the first 6 months of Variant, but like you just said, I was like, when news broke or I had to change it for whatever the reason was, then at the beginning of the following episode, I'd have to be like, now I know I said I was going to talk about Wonder Woman this week, but...
Exactly, yeah.
So I'm just like, I just cut that all out like you did, and I was like, no, I'll just not say it and surprise them.
Yeah, it made because now with Guardians of the Galaxy and everything and the post credit scene there, I don't want to give any spoilers away.
Right.
But with the post-credit scene, I'm kind of like, I kind of want to make an episode about that. And then, because there's a really interesting story behind all that, and I'm like, that's a really cool thing. And
totally should just say it's going to be a spoiler warning and do it.
Yeah,
that's what I do. Yeah, or just don't make the thumbnail like too like obvious.
Right.
And then just at the very beginning, be like, now there's going to be spoilers, so you've been warned. Not my problem after this.
Exactly. Yeah. This is a question that you can choose to answer or not to answer. Totally your call. Are there any topics? Yeah. Are there any topics that you have either refused to do or have been, or maybe you tried to write about them, but you were like, this isn't working out so well. Maybe I'll just scrap this idea.
Yes. There's obviously there's some topics that are touchy in the comic world that happen where it's like, it'll have to do with, race or sexuality and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it's not that I don't want to talk about them because, I'm going to say bad stuff about them, which I wouldn't, or disagree, whatever. It's just, I think most people could agree that the media and everything is just really sensitive. And I rather it's not really like someone's race or color isn't important to the character, anyway. I mean, as long as they're written well, that's all I care about. Mm-hmm. I don't care if they're red, blue, green, who they like, what they don't like, whatever. As long as the stories are good, that's all I care about. So I feel like I wouldn't really, have much to say as long as be like, yeah, I don't care if the story's good. That's all I care about. I don't care who you like. If it's good writing, fantastic.
So hard segue from that. Because
to the left.
Yep. Yeah. So you go and buy physical copies of comic books, right? Are you a digital? Yes. Yeah. So you're not into the whole digital comic books.
Well, no, I do both.
Both? Oh, perfect.
Yeah. Okay. If you had to ask me, I'm a print guy, just because a lot of people might not know, or they follow me on Instagram and Twitter. They might. I'm actually a big action figure collector. So I love action figures. So right now I'm really into the DC Collectibles New 52 line. I have every single one of them. There's 50, and I have them all. They're just all over my man cave, which my wife was nice enough to give me. So I have them all in there in the Greg Capullo designer series. I don't know if you heard of that. I have all that. But yes, I'm a collector, so I like to own the things. So it's yes, and I like to just, I'm old school too, in the sense where I'm reading a book, I want to hold it and I want to see the art, because that's another thing, the art. I want to own the art. It's not even so much, the story, because the story, it's a story, you have it digital, whatever, it's going to be in your head. But owning the art is awesome. I mean, it's having something tangible where I could go back to, or I even displaying some of them. I'll put them in the glass cases, the comic cases where you can hang them on the wall because it's just an awesome cover.
Yeah.
So, but I also but I think digital, because a lot of people are always digital's ruining the print, or it's going to close down comic book shop. It's no, it's not. It's really think about it. It's there's so many people that I even know that would not be into comics if it wasn't for digital, because there's lots of people who buy comic books or would want to read comic books but are not willing to go to the comic store. Mm-hmm. So it's they'll go on their iPhone or their tablet or whatever and download a comic real quick, but they're not going to drive 10 miles to a comic book shop. So it's it's opening up a whole new market. So you're gonna have the diehards like me. I think. Are you a print guy too?
I'm actually not. I'm a digital guy.
You're a digital guy. Okay,
but I do buy the volume sets though. If I like if I like the digital comic book series that I'm reading, then I'll buy the physical volume of it to have. So kind of both.
Yeah. So okay. So other people who are really into print, I think, it's just a matter of owning it. Where if you have it on your iPad or your computer or whatever, it's cool too, because there'll be lots of times where I'm laying in bed and it's dark and I'm not going to sit there or want to try to hold my comic book, or I also try to keep them in good condition, so I don't want to bend them or whatever and mess it up. But it's just an easy way, because if I'm sitting at the mechanic getting my oil changed, I'll go on my phone, read a comic book. Or I'm laying in bed, I read a comic book. There's some issues that I will buy twice, or some issues that I don't want to wait, because there'll be a certain series like Batman, I always have to own print. Spider-Man, Justice League, my favorites, I'll always have to own that print. But other ones, where I still reading action comics, Superman, Wonder Woman, or all new X-Men or whatever. I'm I like it, but I can do it in digital. And this way, I can read wherever I want. I don't have to be sitting down at a table or on a couch or anything. I could just read it in bed. So I think they're both really great. End of the day, if there's we have to get rid of one, I'm going to choose print, just because that's how I grew up reading them. But I think they're both awesome, and I love digital. It's just it opens up a whole new world and audience for comic books. So I could see why people like it more. It totally makes sense. It's way more easier too. It's it's because instead of having, you do your own pull list too. There's with Comixology and stuff. Have you seen that they have a pull list app?
Yeah.
You can just do it there, and you just buy them all right there. And it's just, what's also cool is you don't have to flip through in like your long box or short box. If you're like, what issue, and you just go through, and it's just so much quicker.
Yeah, exactly. Because when I graduated high school, my dad sent me like a ton of his comic books as like a graduation present, and just like long boxes upon long boxes of comic books. And I'm like, I don't even know where to start. So and thankfully he had it organized at least somewhat, so that it was like Spider-Man stuff was here and X-Men stuff was there. And then,
so I'm assuming you got into comics because of your dad then, right?
I did. Yeah, I got into comic books.
Now I'm interviewing you. So how did you get into comics?
Well, it's funny you say that. I think it all started with comic book movies, and my dad being, I think it started with the first X-Men movie. My dad was super into X-Men, and I think he's more of a Marvel guy than DC guy, so he's super into all that. And he took me, I think it was just me and him in the theater. That was like the first time it was only just me and my dad in the theater watching a movie, and we saw X-Men, and it was super awesome. And it was actually, I think it was also the first time I saw a movie twice in theaters. So it was, cool. I went back and saw it again the second time with the rest of my family, and it was just, and I think from there, talking with my dad about comic books and stuff, and then
sparked your interest.
That's what happened. So.
See, that's like brings us back to what we were talking earlier, where it's like a lot of times the movies or video games is what makes people interested in the comic books. It's not always they start and branch off. So it's like, why are you dogging people for not knowing anything?
Exactly.
you know what I mean? The reason why they want to read the comics is because of the movie. So it's like, it doesn't matter if they didn't read the comic book first.
Exactly. So do you have, because you were talking about how you frame comic books and action figures and stuff like that, do you have like a prized possession in terms of comic books or action figures?
Yes. Let's see. Action figure. I have, I actually posted this a while back. I have what's dubbed in the toy world as the Mcfarlane Spider-Man. It's like Toy Magazine in like 2000 whatever named it the best Spider-Man action figure ever because it has like 40 something points of articulation. Like each finger moves individually, and like it's from an offset, the Spider-Man Classics, which is an offset of the Marvel Legends line, which I'm sure a lot of people have heard of at least. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that figure is going for like $400 on eBay. I actually, another fun fact, when I got married, I was really into Marvel Legends, like the original series. Mm-hmm. I sold off a lot of my collection to help pay for my wedding, and I got like $3,000. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, people were like, oh my gosh, so your wife made you sell them? No, I wanted to. And now I'm actually recollecting again with DC. So it's like, oh, I did Marvel back then. Now I'm going to start collecting DC. So now I got like a room full of DC like collectible action figures. And I also like the black and white statues are really cool. The Batman black and whites.
Yes.
Those are cool. As far as a comic book and not a toy, let's see, I got some rare Spider-Man issues. Oddly enough, I don't have rare Batman issues. I mean, I have the issue 1 from the New 52, which is like going for like $80 right now.
Oh, wow.
But let's see, I guess Amazing Spider-Man 300, which is a very famous issue. I have the first appearance of Tarantula, which is cool.
Oh.
The first appearance of the second Hobgoblin, or second Green Goblin, sorry, where Harry Osborn is Green Goblin. What else do I got? I have some stuff sitting. I don't know. The first appearance of Harley Quinn. That's a rare Batman book I have. That's a good one. Yes, I love that issue. It's not too pricey. I don't have like any comic book that's worth like, $5,000. I think the most expensive comic book I have is probably worth like $200 or something like that. Mm. But that's because as much as I love comic books, I can't justify spending like $700 on an issue. It's, you know what I mean? It's like, I mean, maybe if I was rich, I would, but it's like, I can't. It's just like, you have $700 on an issue, and at that point, if you're spending that much money on a comic book, you're not even really going to read it because you're just like, nope, this is going to be framed. This is like in a time capsule. Mm-hmm. So
air will cool. never touch this.
And I'm not dogging anyone who does or is into that because that's awesome. That's cool that they do that. It's just me personally, I couldn't do it. At least not now. Maybe if I was Moneybags one day. Yeah. If you want to talk about cool things I've held a lot of. I held Amazing Fantasy 15. Which is the first appearance of Spider-Man. It was in 6.5 condition from CGC. It was $23,000, I believe.
I am so jealous of you right now. I
held that. I've held the Batman #1. I've held. It was at a comic shop. So yes, that was like, I forget what condition it is, but it was like $50,000 or something like that. But I've held a lot of rare comic books. Obviously, I don't own them, but I've held a lot. Because actually was able to hold Amazing Fantasy because I did a live show at Comic-Con for Variant, and I was interviewing one of the booths, and I saw that he had it there. I was like, hey, can I hold that? I was like, sure. And then I held it, and I was like, oh my God.
Oh, that must have been amazing.
My kidney for this. Because to me, or I guess if anyone who really thinks about it, like those number one issues of like your first appearance of Spider-Man, first appearance of any major character, Superman or whatever, it's like, it's an historical piece. Because if you think about how huge, like, not even just like us comic lovers, but like how big of a pop culture like icon these characters are, like everyone knows who Superman, Batman, Spider-Man is. Like those are the three most popular superheroes in the world. So it's like they're not even just like, you know, a comic lover's like, oh, it's just like without Superman or any of these big characters, pop culture would probably be drastically different as a whole. Yeah. So it's like you're holding a piece of history in a sense. So I could see like, you know, you got those millionaires who are like, I want this because this is a piece of history. So it's like, yeah, although $1 million on a comic book, it's like, really though? $9 on a comic book? It's like, you know what you could do with $1 million. I guess if you have nowhere else to spend it.
If you're a Bruce Wayne, Tony Stark kind of
yes, okay.
person.
If you're Bruce Wayne, yes, I'd buy every single issue of the Volume 1 of Detective Comics.
Can you imagine if Bruce Wayne collected comics and like that was it was some sort of weird comicception type of a thing where comics inside comics? That would be interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're just about we're about to wrap up here. So thank you so much again for joining us on the show. It was great to have you.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun.
Yeah. So if people want to go check out some more of your stuff, where can they find you on the internet?
They could find me at youtube.com/VariantComics or rev3.com/variant. And then you can follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/Arris_Quinones. You can search Variant on Facebook, and then all those other social media outlets.
Yeah.
I'm everywhere. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Put myself out there.
Yeah. So that was our conversation. I hope you guys enjoyed listening to it as much as I enjoyed being a part of it. And I do want to elaborate one more time on how cool Arris is, because immediately after we ended that Skype call, he called back, and then we just talked for an additional hour, just shooting the breeze, talking about life and comic books and YouTube, and it was just so much fun. Really appreciate him taking the time out to do this. And hey, if any of you guys have discovered us through him, through Variant, then I would love for you guys to come check out our YouTube channel where we do similar comic book videos every Wednesday, as well as this podcast every Monday. YouTube.com/NerdSync Productions. That's NerdSync Productions. Thank you guys so much for listening to this podcast. You can find it on iTunes, Stitcher, and YouTube, and we always appreciate feedback in the form of comments or reviews. So please take the time out to do that so we can help make this even better. And we'll see you guys right here next week for more of the NerdSync Podcast. See ya.